Today on Mother Mayhem. You thought that this was the time she would see you when all she wanted was the split second of your attention to affirm that you were still looking her way. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast for Daughters. I'm your host, Heather Gray. In just a moment, I get to introduce you to Cheryl. I've named her Cheryl after the author Cheryl Strayed, who wrote Wild. That book tells the story of Cheryl both losing herself and finding herself on the Pacific Crest Trail. And I think our daughter, Cheryl, will relate. She too feels lost, but to me, it seems like she might be the most found she's ever been. Now, before we dive into Cheryl's story, I want to take a quick moment to check in on what's happening in Mayhem. This community, well, it's growing, and I want you to feel a part of it. If you're just here for Cheryl's story, hang tight. It's coming in a minute. First and foremost, we have this space, Mother Mayhem. It's our home base. It's our center. It's my center. This is where we've been coming together each week to explore what it's like to be raised by a narcissistic or emotionally limited mother and how that experience continues to affect you in your everyday life. It's where I get to sit with you, help you think things through, and offer next steps, guiding you from where you are now to a place closer to where you'd like to be. And this space, well, it means the absolute world to me. Then, in August, I opened up Tuesday Group, a weekly Zoom space where daughters can connect for 90 minutes each week, sharing what's on their minds, weighing on their hearts. Y'all get to be heard, and they get to be helped by me and by the other daughters in the room. And now, just 2 weeks old at the time of this recording, we have Mayhem Daughters, a private online space for you daughters to connect, share your experiences, and get support. And honestly, watching this all come to life has been pretty amazing. When I first imagined Mayhem Daughters, I thought I was building something like an old school AOL community. I know that's dating me, but something like chat rooms and discussions and private messaging, this space that was off social media where your moms would never be able to find you. But almost immediately, it started to become something much more. At first, I thought it was simply going to be a place for each of you to keep each other company as you did your own healing work. But I had it wrong. Yeah, the daughters in there, they're keeping each other company, but they're also starting to walk the path together. They're not just talking about the work. The women in there are doing the work, supporting one another as they move through it. This kind of support sounds like something that could be for you. I would really invite you to consider joining. And I know your trauma brain here will whisper that it's too late, that you won't belong, that everyone else is already connected and you'll be on the outside looking in. And I get that thinking. If I were you, I would probably worry about that too. In fact, when I made Tuesday Group a drop-in space, I had that exact same fear, that new daughters wouldn't feel safe jumping in because other daughters had already connected. But that's not what's been happening in there. Sure, some members and daughters, they come every week and they have built familiarity with each other. But they also know that anyone walking into that space already has things in common with them, just by the definition of being there. And new members are connecting quickly. They join in on the conversation pretty easily. That's who all of you are. That is how y'all move through the world. So, if you're feeling the pull to be a part of something like this, I want you to know that there's plenty of room for all of you. We would love to have you. And if you're feeling unsure about it, I am always available to check in. You can email me anytime at heather@daughtersnpd.com. And you can also find the link to join Tuesday Group or our online community, Mayhem Daughters, in the show notes for this episode. I do hope you'll consider joining us. Okay, now switching gears. I get to introduce you to Cheryl and her story, and I'm going to find you on the other side. Hi, Heather. I recently found your podcast during a difficult time that my mother was putting me through, and I couldn't be more grateful to have found it. As I've heard other listeners say in their letters, it often sounds like you're speaking directly to me about my mom. I'm still working my way through the episodes because it is heavy stuff. Yes, it is, Cheryl. But I have learned so many valuable tips and lessons so far, and I've begun to implement them. I've also shared the podcast with my sister, who was home visiting from across the country for the holidays, and we used the revisited holiday episode to get through that time with our mom as unscathed as possible. And with some humor. Good on you. Did you play Narcissistic Mother Bingo? So thank you so much for all that you do for us daughters. It's life-changing. My question actually is about the aftermath of the holidays, but requires me to backtrack a little bit first. About 4 days before Christmas Eve, when my sister would be arriving, my mom called me and started a fight with me. She had kicked out yet another alcoholic and toxic boyfriend and was calling me to tell me how lonely she was and how I don't do enough for her since I moved home. I was living away for 7 years and just moved home last Christmas, and a struggle I've had with my mom is that she gets jealous and upset when I do things with my friends, my husband, or my in-laws instead of her. I will sometimes invite her to group events, but she typically ends up canceling or embarrassing and upsetting me by talking poorly about me in front of the crowd. I then have to find time to see her alone, which I do try to do 3 or 4 times a month. Believe me, after the phone call with her, I counted. I'm sure you did, sister. I'm also really busy, though. I work 2 jobs, I have 2 high-energy dogs, and my husband works shift work, so I don't have a ton of free time to spend with anyone, let alone with her. Anyway, during the call, I tried to calmly explain that while I can understand why she's upset and feeling lonely, it's not my job as her daughter to be her source of happiness, companionship, and entertainment. This didn't go over well, and she stopped speaking to me. She told my sister about the fight, saying hurtful things like she wished I wasn't her daughter. She took it out on my sister as well, saying she was too upset now to even see my sister over the holidays and canceled almost all of their plans. Luckily, my sister and I have always had a united front and have done a lot of work on how to deal with my mom. So she and I adopted the let her mindset. We would still invite my mother to things, but if she would rather sit at home and do laundry on Christmas Day instead of spend it with us, yes, that's really what she said, we decided to let her. The one thing she did come to was my Boxing Day brunch, where she acted horribly. She refused to speak to or acknowledge my husband and I in our own home. She made nasty remarks about how family isn't important to some people, and she gave me a card with the caveat that it was not for my husband and I. Rather, it was for our dogs, whose names were the only ones on the front of the envelope to prove her point. Jesus Christ, Cheryl, and refused to sit at the table with everyone. It felt like the longest hour of my life. I bet it did. We did find some humor in this as best we could, but if being honest, it left me feeling hurt, disrespected, and hopeless. I still gave her her Christmas card, which had concert tickets in it, and before she left, to my surprise, an hour later, she phoned in the most cheery voice, thanking me for the thoughtful concert tickets and stating how excited she was to go. It was a complete 180 since she wouldn't even make eye contact or speak to me just an hour earlier at brunch. I told her I wasn't going to play this game with her, that she was totally rude and disrespectful to me and my husband, and that I would no longer be tolerating that in my relationship with her, and that she was not going to call me and pretend she did nothing wrong to move past this. She denied her actions, saying she did the best she could given our current situation. I ended the conversation by saying I needed some space to think about our relationship moving forward. About 2 weeks later, I messaged her and asked her if she would have a phone call with me, and she said she was too busy. I didn't follow up. About a week after that, this current week, at the time of my writing in, She messaged me and asked me to stop by so she could give me some homemade supper. I took this as an olive branch and agreed to stop by, hoping to have some kind of conversation. Instead, she ran out to my car, hugged and kissed me when I got out, and was cheery and chatty. She stated that she had to go quickly, but thanked me for popping by and told me that she loved me, which left me in yet another whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I hate that I will never get the acknowledgement I want and deserve from her about her actions over the holidays. But knowing my mom, she never owns anything. However, I also hate just moving on and feeling like she gets a pass. I keep telling myself that the answer is that I will maintain the boundary I set around her being respectful, and I will react if and when she breaches that. But in the moment, I just feel so defeated and lost on how to move forward. Any advice you have would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much again, Heather, for all you do. Feeling lost and defeated, Cheryl. Okay, Cheryl, I'm really sorry that this is your story and that it's also your sister's story right now, because the two of you, you're doing everything right. And it does feel just awful when you do everything right and the other person doesn't show up. And it isn't fair. I'm really proud of you guys for doing this hard work together. And it is also rather nice to know that you both have each other for company on this path. And also, Cheryl and sister, as I'm recording this, I'm wishing I had named your sister. I'm hopeful that as you listen to your story back, that you had started to hear what I and all of the other daughters listening in already heard. There is absolutely nothing you could have done to change where you have landed with your mom. You've communicated with her, you let her be, you've respected her limits while adhering to your own. You even went so far as to keep an open door with her throughout the holiday season when she was so entirely hell-bent on slamming it. You gave her the benefit of the doubt, Cheryl. You tried to meet her where she was at. You showed sensitivity to her limitations. It is so incredibly clear that over and over again, you tried not to expect anything more from your mom than what she was capable of. And now you find yourself sitting in a really incredibly painful reality that she is simply not capable of all that much. You signed your letter to me, lost and defeated. Cheryl, I get defeated. Defeated makes a lot of sense to me. Of course you're defeated. You and your sister have tried and done your absolute best, and still your best hasn't been working. And the reasons why it didn't work had nothing to do whatsoever with you, your sister, or anything you communicated. What you're both sitting in here right now is the hard reality that it is impossible to communicate with someone who is determined to misunderstand you. And that's what your mom is, Cheryl. She is absolutely, positively determined to misunderstand you, because when there's a disconnect, she gets to watch you and your sister do the dance for her. She gets to watch you try. She gets to watch you chase, and she gets to watch your attention move from anything else just to her. There's a tough dynamic that can be hard to understand about narcissists. If they can't get your attention positively, they're more than fine with getting it negatively. For many of you listening, attention feels like part of a connection, a healthy two-way relationship. But remember, narcissists are incapable of genuine connection. They thrive on your attention, whether you're tending to them, trying to reason with them, or seeking a connection. They don't care about the intent behind your efforts. All they register is that they got your attention, something others don't. So it benefits them to misunderstand you, imply that your efforts aren't enough, or twist your boundaries. As long as they get to do this in their mind, they still have you because your attention is on them. That's what that invitation to drive by her house was, an attention grab to see if she could get you to do the dance. And that is why it felt so awful for you in that moment, because you realized once again she was successful in getting you to dance for her. She pulled that for an attention grab, and you got hurt because little girl Cheryl got her hopes up that this time was finally the time that her mother would see her for her, see how hard she was trying, see how much she was willing to do for a relationship. You thought that this was the time she would see you when all she wanted was the split second of your attention to affirm that you were still looking her way. And of course, of course, of course, of course that hurts, Cheryl. Of course it does. How could it not? Of course you got hurt here. Now, I need you to really do me a favor for a second. I really want you to take one of these really big, deep breaths that I like to advocate for when I'm doing this show. A good, deep breath, because I need to share some hard truths with you. And before you can hold any more than what you're already holding, we need you to exhale a little bit. So, really, go ahead and take the deep breath. Because here's the thing, Cheryl. I'm not so sure you're lost, sister. I don't think you're lost at all. Rather, I think you're finding yourself in a moment of profound knowing and of grief that you can feel deep in your bones that this is really who your mom is, that this is really all she's capable of, and that there is nothing you can do to make her capable of being in any more of a relationship with you than she currently is. And Cheryl, that's going to hurt like a sucker punch, a total sucker punch, and one whose implications are going to continue to hit you in layers and in waves. You have been doing all of this healing work, and of course, you thought it would lead to a better relationship, not one that ended in this might be as good as it gets with your mom thing. And I am so sorry that you are sitting in this reality right now. However, if it's okay with you, I would like to share with you why I think you might be feeling so lost. I feel hopeful for you that as you listen to your story back and you heard everything that you and your sister have already done and tried, that you really do see that you have done everything you possibly could. But I think you might be feeling lost because in trying so hard to connect with your mom, you might have abandoned yourself. And that lost feeling is coming from what feels like self abandonment. Let's walk back together to when she was at your home being so awful. She couldn't even address her card to you. She had to address it to your dogs. And still, you gave her the card with the concert tickets. And Cheryl, I felt that one so deeply, because me too, sister. I cannot tell you how many times in my own life, either with my stepmother or my father, when I would respond to hurtful comments with attempts to connect, join, love, or be seen. There is no judgment coming from me on this one or from any of the daughters listening. I am sure every single one of us listening have been there and done this very thing. A loving gesture in the face of disrespectful treatment, hoping for connection and for that icy facade we are receiving to just crack or melt. And Cheryl, I promise you, us Mayhem daughters, we get this. And I'm including your sister in this one too. And you both, neither of you are alone in this. I think you're going to start feeling less lost when you start seeing all of your feelings through to the other side. You tried your best. You got your hopes up and it didn't work. And that is going to leave you in deep grief and disappointment. And unfortunately, you're going to need to spend some time there. really validating your truth and your experience. It really did happen just as you felt it. Not just what's happened in recent months, but all of it. Your childhood, your life, your truth, not your imagination. You heard me last week with Aria. So much grief comes with healing. It can feel like it overtakes you sometimes, and I really wish that part wasn't true about this. But here's what else is true. Your suffering will ease the more you promise yourself that you will never self abandon again. When the choice is between your mother's version of events and yours, you are going to choose yourself. Your mother, she can still do her dance, but you and your sister can choose not to engage. Over the holidays, I liked this one. You guys let her do laundry instead of coming to Christmas. And good on you guys for that. Good on you. That takes some big girl cojones there. You let her not come. And going forward, you will do the same as long as anything you do toward connecting with her stays within your own boundaries without sacrificing a piece of yourself. Now, you and your sister, you guys get to work through this together. Now that you really know who your mom is, that this is her, how she moves through the world, what kind of relationship do you want to have with her? What are your limits and boundaries for that relationship? Now that you know what your mom is capable of, how might your expectations shift about who she is and the role she plays in your life? You might all remember the daughter I talked about some time ago who was going through a divorce. All she wanted was her mom's emotional support, but that wasn't who her mom was. Her mom offered financial support and she was great with gardening, so she accepted her mother's help with the garden and the financial support without expecting her to meet her emotional needs. You and your sister may still find yourselves a little bit on a trial and error road as you try to figure all of this out. You might have to engage with your mom for a while just to feel in your bodies what feels okay and what doesn't. The promise you make to yourselves is that when your bodies talk to you, you will listen. All of this is really hard and really sad, Cheryl, and I really wish it wasn't true for you. But if we can bring you back to yourself, help you reconnect or connect to your heart and guide you toward what's best for it, I know you will start to feel more found. You sisters, you guys didn't get the mother you deserved, and you have some healing to do about that. But I know it's going to start to feel better as you come to see that there's nothing you could have done to change the ending to this particular story. There's nothing that could have prevented you from landing where you are. And I wish my answer to that could be different. I wish I could tell you to just do these 4 steps and have something break open, but you're hurting because you already tried that and it didn't work. So many daughters are listening and they are with you in this. They know exactly how you feel and they're saying, me too. All of you are in this community of women around the world who are in this together. And I, for sure, most definitely am in it with you too. Bye for now. I do hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have a question you'd like me to consider for the show, please do email me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. You are always welcome to share your story or questions by recording yourself using the voice app on your phone. For best recording quality, please do record directly into your phone without using headphones or Bluetooth speakers. We're building an incredible community as well over on Instagram, and I'd love to see you over there too. You can find us at Daughters NPD. Lastly, if you love what you've been hearing here on Mayhem and have found the show helpful in your own trauma recovery, please do consider becoming a Mother Mayhem sponsor by purchasing simple scripts for saying hard things It's a resource I created that provides the right words for the hard conversations, and it covers life, love, and work. You'll find a link for that in the show notes. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, please do share the show with her. Your reviews and social shares help spread the word, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing the show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks so much for your time today. As always, I'm in it with you. Bye for now.